W here. I want to talk to you a little bit about my favorite deer rifle. This really started out as a favorite from day one, and I really never could figure out why. It's just one of those rifles that just was perfect for me at the perfect time. It just clicked all the check marks and checked all the boxes, and it just did everything I needed it to do when I needed it to do it, how I needed it to do it. And the fact that it shoots so darn well, it just was perfect for me. When I think of hunting, this is what I think of hunting with. And I've made some recent changes to it, and I just want to make a video and kind of show it off, because it's gone through some transitions and it's largely back to the beginning, and that's where it's going to stay. I like it so much that I'm seriously contemplating a second one with a heavier barrel as well, it's not really long range because it's only a Grendel, but it could stretch out pretty good on paper and steel. It could be a solid 750 yard paper steel gun. It's the 6.5 Grendel has the trajectory of a 308 Winchester. So, it doesn't carry the energy or the power, of course. Loaded up in a bolt action rifle, you can get some better ballistics out of it safely, not with factory. You have to be a hand loader, and I'm not condoning overloading cartridges, but we all know that very few of us have any pressure testing equipment, so we go by what the brass tells us, what the rifle tells us with report and hard bolt lift and marks on the cases. And well, a lot of people go by flat primers, but you shouldn't. But it does tell you pressures. It just doesn't give you reliable, accurate, repeatable pressure signs. Anyway, I digress a little. The Grendel is loaded to about 52K in pressure because it's an AR-15 cartridge, meaning it's designed, intended for use in an AR-15. And the AR-15 can only handle that amount of pressure. Well, our modern bolt actions most of them are rifles that are handling multiple calibers, and many times with the same bolt head size, okay? Because if you have 50,000 K pressures on a 375 bolt head and 50,000 K pressures on a 507 Magnum bolt head, those two things aren't equal. The bolt thrust is far different from the larger one to the smaller one. The more you spread out the pressures over the larger area, the less stresses are on overall. So it's not pinpointed. Like if you pushed 10 pounds on the point of a pencil and 10 pounds on the end of a baseball bat, the pencil would probably pierce where the baseball bat would not. So it's a poor analogy, but you get my point. So many of the rifles that the Grendel is chambered in are also chambered for cartridges that are running 60K. Let's just, for instance, 270 Winchester. That's a much higher pressure cartridge than even the 3006. But it's the same sized bolt head, same sized rifle, same sized action, barrel thickness, everything, metallurgy, everything's identical except for the bore diameter and the pressures it's run at. So most people loading a 3006, let's say, are actually loading it, if they're loading by pressures they find on their cartridge cases to find their maximum, they're loading to much higher than book loads for that cartridge. They're perfectly safe, but they're loaded beyond what the cartridge designers had in mind for the cartridge, because the cartridge was designed in a day and a time when the firearms, in the case of the 06, when the firearms didn't have the strength to hold the pressures up as high as they can today. Perfect example would be 4570, the trapdoor Springfield that you saw in the Army, the Indian War times, Custer's Last Stand. Those cartridges could not be, those rifles could not stand the pressures of modern loaded 4570. It would blow the gun up because the metallurgy and the design was not such that could withstand the pressures. So when you load the Grendel in a bolt action rifle, you can almost get a couple of 100 feet per second, an honest 125 to 150 feet per second over what you can get out of the AR in a bolt rifle. And that puts it up, pretty good, and helps a lot with ballistics. It doesn't mean a whole incredible amount overall in the grand scheme of things, but it does certainly help you out with ballistics. So my point being is the Grendel can be a really good medium range, medium large game rifle, easily handling up to the smaller bears, easily mule deer, caribou. People have used it on elk. I wouldn't. I term it like a 243 in that regard. It just it's got a little better bullet diameter in 264, but it's too small for elk. And all but the closest shots on the calmest of game. We all know that they're shooting deer with pellet guns and killing them dead because it's where you shoot them more than what you shoot them with. But humane practices dictate a certain pressure, a certain energy level for a certain weight animal, and I subscribe to that. So I draw the line at biggish deer with this caliber. But that's pretty much what I'm hunting. Pigs, deer, antelope, stuff like that, and it's fine for that. I'm going to say out past 300 yards, not a whole lot more, but on a calm animal, I would not hesitate on a 350 yard shot. But that's going to cover 100% of all the kind of hunting I've done so far. So there's 8.5 minutes of my rambling. Let's look closer at what I've got here to show you and the biggest change that I just made. Again, this is a Howa Mini, and as it comes with a plastic bottom metal. It's got a removable box magazine from the factory that's plastic, and this part is plastic. Now this is actually the second one I've had because I cracked and broke the first one right there at the seams for that screw and the front at that screw, because you can't torque the action screws to sufficient numbers because the plastic that this is made out of won't withstand it. It's a serious flaw with this firearm. So this is pretty much something you're going to have to change right away if you buy one of these. Now there's a number of companies offering them, and this is the first one that I bought. I am a member over on the 6.5 Grendel forums, and this guy got on there and is a member as well, and DIP making up these bottom metal, and they are actually metal. They're aluminum. That's the factory magazine, and that's his logo, and he even made it up with the logo for the club. And that's the Grendel logo for the forum. So it's nice that he etched that in there, laser etched that in there. And it works really good. And it utilized the factory mag release, which is this right here. This is a real poor design too, because you just bump this and it's easy to bump and the magazine falls right out. And when the magazine's full of cartridges, it weighs a little bit more, so it slides right out easy. So this is right at the point where you carry the gun, you know, so your hands can hit that easy, releasing your mag, and it was a big complaint the guys had. So shortly after the fact, he came up with this magazine release, which is pretty ingenious. It works backwards, so you got to push it down or pull it down to release the magazine. Instead of pushing this back, it's up here, and the way it's designed, it lays flat. So when you're handling the gun, holding the gun, again, just figure this being in the stock, you're not going to bump that. You know, you're not going to bump it. And it's got a stiffer spring, so it's harder to manipulate. And it served the purpose. It worked really good. And being metal, it lets you torque the screws down, and you got good action torque on your screws, and you got better accuracy. So just adding bottom metal got you better accuracy out of your rifle. Well, this is nice, and it works well. Now, a lot of people complain about the magazines, but in my humble opinion, people like to complain more than they like to proclaim. So I don't have a problem with this magazine. They are a little expensive, but it's always worked fine, always fed beautiful. You know, I can find fault with it. It's a little bit short. I'd like to have it longer so I can seat my bullets out more. But it works fine. It's the size of a 10 round, but it's just a 5. So that was always kind of a head scratcher. And they didn't offer a 10 round. So, you know, that was just always something that made me wonder. My next step after I added the dip was I put a Boyd stock on it. I put a Boyd's Varminter stock on it. And I had all kinds of problems with it, with the bedding. It wasn't sealed on the inside at all. It was a totally finished stock, but they didn't put anything on the inside. And it must have been slightly green because it actually warped. When I put it on, it was centered in the barrel channel. I pillar bedded it and screwed it on. So I had good solid bedding. I didn't glass bed it, but good solid bedding and good solid screw torque. And put it away and pulled it out, and the stock was pushed hard against one side of the barrel. So I took it all back apart and hogged it all out, cleaned it all up. Then I bed it. I bedded the action into the stock. I sealed everything up, and I put it back on. It always shot really good, but it was gaining weight, gaining bulk, and frankly, it wasn't as good a hunter as it was with this factory stock. This is a factory Hogue style stock. If Hogue makes this for them is all I could think of, because it doesn't have the aluminum bedding block like the Hogue stocks do. It just has the same shape, and it's not really rubberized. It's just plastic, but it's pretty stiff and it's light. So I like it. It feels good. Then I put a bigger scope on it. I changed out the mounts to a 20 MOA rail. I put a different scope on it, bigger, heavier scope. Again, it shot great, but I found myself leaving it home because it was heavy. It was pushing 9-10 pounds, and for that size gun, heavyweight a gun, it's got a nice thin, slim barrel, 22 inches, and like I say, it shot really good, but it lost some of its affection to me, appeal to me. So I was talking with a friend a couple of weeks ago, and I decided to put a new scope on it. And this is a Hawk Vantage. I bought a Hawk Conquest, I think, whatever the next one up from this is. And I bought it from a guy online, and when I got it, the glass in the front was scratched, and there was a big gouge in the objective. And I sent it back to him. Called him up. He said, send it back to him. Well, he couldn't get another one. That was a special deal of some kind, he would have had to give me a brand new scope. It was a refurbished scope as I remember it. And the price was really good. And he was trying to get out of having to give me a brand new scope. The difference was a couple of $100 because the next one up scope from this is a $600 range scope. And I had paid like $300 for it. So, you know, he had, of course, get it for cost, so he saved a little bit, but it was going to cost him quite a bit of money, and it was really at no fault of his. So we got to talking, and he was nice. He was really good about it. I think he would have done it if I'd have pushed him, but I didn't need to. It wasn't like I was in love with the scope. I never even got to use it. I liked it. I like Hawk scopes, so I ordered it, and it was a good price at a good value scope, so I figured I would jump, and it just didn't work out. So this one here was another used scope that he had. Again, this is a 3-12 Vantage line, 30 WA. It has a 56 millimeter objective, which is the single part I didn't care for. But when I talked to him about it, he said he's got one with a real nice reticle. He thinks I'll like it, and he can do it for a good price. And I even got some money returned. He sent it out, and it's not perfect. You can see it's got some little scratches in it, little marks on it. It's okay. It's a hunting scope. I don't care. I didn't pay top dollar for it. This scope is about $400 new, 400 bean sprouts. Again, I was a little worried about the size of the objective, so I waited to get it to see what height bases I was going to be able to use. And I put it on that MOA rail, and I tried it with low rings. And I'll tell you, if this scope had about 1/4 of an inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch more eye relief, I could have mounted it in low rings on that 20 MOA rail and used it. But as it stood, I needed to go to medium. So I ordered, these here are the tally rings that you've seen me using lately, in medium for a 700 Remington, because they don't offer them for the Howa Mini. They do have some for the Howa 1500s, which should also work because the 1500 is the same as the 700 Remington as far as mounting. But I went with this. Now it does hang over a little here in the opening, and if that becomes a problem, I can grind that off and taper that back and remove that. But I don't think it's going to be. But the scope isn't heavy. It looks like it is, but it really isn't. And its light gathering ability and its reticle is super. It is illuminated. And I'll throw in a picture here of the reticle. So that's the reticle. And just the little dot in the middle is what lights up. And wow, am I impressed with this scope. I gotta say, this is my favorite scope right now. It's not heavy, it's not big. It is a little bit bulky with this giant objective, but this rifle weighs just over 6 pounds as you see it. 6 pounds. That's not a heavy rifle. Talking to my buddy, he told me about this bottom metal made by Jefferson Outdoors. Hinged floor plate, just like a lot of hunting rifles have. So you've got a little lever here, and you've got a hinged floor plate with a box magazine. What quality! It's just amazing the quality that this is. It came totally finished. It's a plastic box, but that doesn't hurt anything. The box magazine is plastic, but everything down here is metal. I am very impressed. It's got a good looking trigger guard. The one thing about the dip was I never liked the shape of that trigger guard. It always looked funky to me. I did like the factory look, but being plastic, this is useless. So this is metal again. I can torque my action bolts. Was this pillar bedded or did I pillar bed this? I don't remember, but this is now pillar bedded. These action screws are pillar bedded. I don't know if I did it or it was done at the factory. And I'm going to shoot it as is because the bedding's pretty good. If I have any kind of problems, I'm going to pull it back out and I'm going to bed it. I'll bed just the front lug area here. But this is going to stay just like this. And I'm really excited about it because it's such a great handling gun, such a good shooting gun. Shoots well under an inch, well under half an inch with loads that it likes at 100 yards. So I've got all these extra parts now. I've got the 20 MOA rail. I've got a good set of, I forget whose rings these are. I do know who they are. It's a big name. I've got a bigger bolt knob. And I've got the bottom metal with 2 extra magazines. So, and I've got the stock. I've got the Boyd's varmint stock. So I know that Brownells has barreled actions in the Howa Minis. And they do go on sale from time to time. So I may just keep my eyes peeled and one day pick up a heavy barrel Grendel Howa Mini and build it, because I've got all these parts to make it work. So, all right, that's it. I've talked to you for over half an hour here. Just wanted to show you my favorite deer rifle. Talked about it a little bit in the 350 Legend videos, and I wanted to show it to you because I just got this bottom metal in, and Jefferson Outdoors is just outstanding. The guy got right back to me. He got it right out to me. Beautiful, beautiful product. All right, that's it. God bless everybody. Hope you had a happy New Year. We're into the new year now. God bless everybody. CW out.